This is the other side, you know, the opposite of the ignorance of the monetary system, the opposite of the ignorance of how money works, the complete opposite of what we were just talking about, which is this quote from Abraham Lincoln, perhaps our greatest, as some said our greatest. This is the quote. The privilege of creating and issuing money is not only the supreme prerogative of government, but it is the government's greatest creative opportunity. By the adoption of these principles, and this was speaking in favor of the greenbacks being issued, the long-felt want for a uniform medium will be satisfied. The taxpayers will be saved immense sums of interest, discounts, and exchanges. The financing of all public enterprises, the maintenance of stable government and ordered progress, and the conduct of the Treasury will become matters of practical administration. The people can and will be furnished with a currency as safe as their own government. Money will cease to be the master and become the servant of humanity. Democracy will rise superior to the money power. Now, that's an example of the kind of a system that we want to make an advance towards. The greenbacks. A monetary revolution that gets us back to the greenbacks.
Absolutely.
And, you know, we have to say that the greenback part of the money system at that point was superfluous and perfect. But the whole money system was not, because they did not prevent the banks at that time from creating money. And because of that, they were not in control of the entire, you know, economy and the well-being that could be produced by public money. So they had limited public was as needed to serve the government's purposes with regard to paying the soldiers during the Civil War. And what we have now is the need to be paying everybody. And the only way that we can have an economy that advances to the point where full employment becomes the reality that it needs to be, and not just a policy objective, excuse me, for the central bank, which has no resources to make it happen at all, has zero resources to make full employment happen. So what we need to do is to take that central bank into the public sphere and put it to work with the resources that it needs, which would be real money resources, in order to make the economy working and workable and, in fact, permanently sustainable again. So therefore, what I'm saying is we need to make change from the system that we have now to what I call the money system common. It is to bring the monetary system back into the commons of the people of this country. When we think about the commons, you know, we think about our natural resources, our real natural resources, and then we think about those resources that we have gathered for the public purpose. And that would include the park around the corner, and that would include all of our national parks, and the highways that we drive on. All of those things are part of our commons. All of those things are part of what makes the national economy work. And the monetary system needs to be seen to be part of our national commons. There's no reason why it should not be so. And we've got the degree, the extent of suffering from the maldistribution of wealth and from the lack of utilization of our natural resources to produce goods and wealth that we need. And we need to turn that around, and the only way to turn that around is to bring the monetary system back to work for the rest of us. And that's how I look at it. The monetary system belongs to the rest of us. It should be working for the rest of us, and it's not. And the fact that it's not results in the situation that we have today. So you can say whatever you want about that, about the situation that we have today. Now, some people might blame that on the Federal Reserve's policy. Some people, a lot of people blame it on the government. Fact of the matter is that the government neither has the resources, neither does the Federal Reserve have the resources, which are money, the monetary resources. So what are we going to do about not having the monetary resources? And the answer is to bring about the Second American Monetary Revolution. Yeah. And the thing about the Second American Monetary Revolution is it is nearly at hand. And it requires a boost. It requires a boost from the people that are wanting to make a change so that their kids can again, have a prospect of having at least as much as they have, of having greater than they have, and in a very general sense. Of course, there are going to be individuals who are going to be able to have more than they have, but they're not a general welfare, well-being being provided by the monetary system today. But it can be if we do one thing, which would be produce the money that's needed without debt. Debt is the constraining factor for most every family in America right now. And no matter how you count that debt, no matter what type of debt it is, the fact of the matter is that all money that comes into existence has to come into existence as a debt. And so when we have a situation where the hole that we're in, the nature of the hole that we're in is a debt hole. And we need to be able to be on top of the debt hole in order to move forward. And with the debt-based money system, the only way we can have more money in the system is to dig the debt hole even deeper. And that's exactly what has happened in the years since we had the crisis in 2008. So that's kind of the nature of what we're talking about when we say this, the Second American Monetary Revolution, is the fact that in this country, we were born of a revolution that was about the monetary system. A famous quote from Benjamin Franklin said, "The principal cause of the American Revolution was the British refused to allow us to use our money system." And we rose up against that, and we ended up attempting, after the war, to establish a national money system. But the problem has always been the fact that the bankers have throughout been the ones that have professed the knowledge and possessed the wealth to convince the lawmakers to establish systems that work to the detriment of real people. And as a result of that, we end up with the system that we have today. And there's no greater than the wealth disparity that's apparent today, the fact that it's actually growing even while we talk about it and study it. Even while we complain about it and talk about how unjust it is and how it has to change. But the problem is having the mechanism for making the change. And the only mechanism that's available to the free people is the monetary system, is to take over the monetary system, to take control of the monetary system. And I want to just mention a couple of things about, excuse me, about the nature of the change, how it's going to affect a spectrum of people. First of all, the effects will be very, very minimal for the 99%. Okay? They will be very, very minimal. In fact, the only thing that would be any different would be them having to make a decision with regard to their money, their bank balances, as to whether they want to use the money to pay bills or use the money for savings and investment. That's the decision that's going to have to be made in the future. Because once real money is created, it's in the bank, it's in the checking account, and if it's going to stay in the checking account, it's not going to earn any interest, and it will be spending it, receiving money and spending money, receiving money and spending money. Income expenses. That part is no different. The only difference is how much money is going to be in that account and how much money is going to be in the savings account, because the savings account is going to be the one that will earn interest, and that will earn interest from the bank. Savings accounts are going to really become loans to banks. The way that you're going to earn interest on your savings account is going to be the fact that the bank is borrowing the money from you and they're paying you that money. So they become the borrower, not just the lender. They, instead of being the creator and the lender, they become the borrower and the lender. It's what most people think banks do right now. Most people think that banks take in their deposits from their customers and then lend that money out to other people that borrow it. It's not true at all. You go in to take out a loan, the bank just makes notations, makes you sign a promissory note to pay them back with interest, and credits your balance in a checking account that they set up for you. They credit that balance. Bank credit is what serves as money today. So the difference is the government will be providing the money. When that money goes into the bank, it's going to have to be separated into that which will be, quote, transaction money, and then what will be savings and investment money, which would be lent to the bank, or which the bank would on-lend to businesses, other homeowners, etc. But the big difference would be the fact that with an adequate money supply, money will be available for wages. The need for borrowing would be reduced. And the borrowing that takes place is with real money. So when you borrow real money, the difference between borrowing real money and borrowing bank credit is that when the bank lends you bank credit, creates money, that M1 money I was just talking about, when you pay it back, that M1 money goes away. There is no M1 money, requiring another bank loan in order to supplement it, otherwise we would have inflation. And as a result of all of that, excuse me, as a result of all of that, the banks would not be destroying money when loans are repaid. They would actually just be receiving money back that could be further lent out. So in other words, money that's created by the government is permanent money. It's issued debt-free, and it remains in the economy, quote, forever, just the same as the greenbacks did. So that's the nature of the new monetary system. The new monetary system will be one where the people decide, first through their legislators in terms of the laws that are passed, and secondly, acting as the owners of the money that gets later gets invested and lent, that the people are going to be in control of the money system, and the depositors are going to be the chief actors in determining how much credit and lending takes place. So we're trying to bring that about. We have a vehicle for bringing that about, and that vehicle is the National Emergency Employment Defense Act. It is the act that was introduced into the Congress by Dennis Kucinich of Ohio in 2 sessions of the Congress, the 111th and the 112th Congress. It is a work that was done and carried out by Congressman Kucinich after he picked up on the advanced proposal of the American Monetary Institute, who who did the research on the money system and who, came up with a design, a rather magnificent design, if I could say so, for having a new money system. So what we want to do then is to make a transition from the system that we have today to the system where the public is in charge of money. The public acting through their Congress to establish a monetary authority to determine the amount of money that would be needed in order to make the economy grow, and finally the public acting as the depositors and the receivers of that money to begin the cycle of lending and repayment and maintaining the public money system at the proper level of money in the system. So those are the kind of things that are of the nature of what it is that we're proposing. There's a lot, that can be said about the history here. There's a lot that can be said about the way this thing has, the way the situation has evolved, and I want to talk a little bit about that history, because the history informs us how we got to this point. But we're at this point. We're past the crash of 2008. And the things that happened after the crash in 2008 that have been very positive from the monetary reform perspective would be first the drafting of the NEAT Act, okay, which would second be the work of monetary economists, varied monetary economists, including Dr. Karu Yamaguchi of Japan, who modeled the American Monetary Act and the NEAT Act in terms of a dynamic macroeconomic model of an open national economy, and found that in fact all of the problems that we're having today and that are taking us towards that dead end of that system can be remedied through a public money system, through that of a public money administration, through that of a money system where money comes into existence as public equity rather than private debt. And the result of Dr. Yamaguchi's modeling has been, instrumental in advancing our understanding of how that money system could work and what the actual implications are even at the micro level. Although he's a macroeconomist and a modeler, but he had to include micro inputs in order to develop his models. So my point is that we have the act, the design of the system. We've got the proof through Dr. Yamaguchi's work that the system can work and would produce, what the economists call GDP potential. When the national economy's potential output can be met through public money administration, and the result would be a reduction and almost a complete ending of public debt, a major reduction in private debt, full employment without inflation, and pursuit of happiness, if you will, because that's one of the things that we want to maintain for ourselves is the ideal of the pursuit of happiness. And when you have a debt-based money system, and that debt-based money system is causing all of society's problems that it is today, the pursuit of happiness is a forgotten lore, and we need to restore it front and center to what it is that we're doing. We need to give the kids a chance. We need to give the grandkids a chance to have something better than the system that we have today. And the only way that appears achievable is through reform to the money system. Now, having said that, again, after the American Monetary Act was advanced and the Need Act was designed and developed and proposed, and the work of Dr. Yamaguchi was done, excuse me, the next development in terms of our advancing of a new monetary system was undertaken by two macroeconomists that were working for the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Jaromir Beneš and Dr. Michael Kumhoff. And they basically took the precursor to, the historic precursor to the Need Act, which was the Chicago Plan for Monetary Reform, which was itself a monumental advancement in terms of what our understanding was and what our structures were with regard to money, which was to propose a public money system. And it was advanced to FDR in 1933 in 2 steps. And Drs. Beneš and Kumhoff took the Chicago Plan, first revisited the Chicago Plan for its understandings, and then they also modeled the public money administrative model and the debt-free, permanent public money administrative model, using the IMF's macroeconomic modeling that it uses for its general business, with the exception, which is a economic speak DSGE model, and but they enhanced that DSGE model to include the important components that Dr. Yamaguchi did, which was banks as players, debt as a limiting factor for the economy, and money as a medium of exchange to make things happen. So that basically Drs. Beneš and Kumhoff excuse me, came to the conclusion that the national monetary system would be working just exactly as the Chicago Plan adherents and proponents said it would work, that it would have exactly the effects on the economy that the proponents of the Chicago Plan, who, by the way, were the top economic professors in the country, most of them associated with the Chicago Business School, and the fact that Drs. Beneš and Kumhoff came to the conclusion that everything that was claimed about the Chicago Plan as a likely outcome would in fact be the outcome, and the fact that not only would those outcomes be realized, but as they said, we would add 2 things, one of which was the achievement, or an increase, excuse me, in the GDP, in the national economies by approximately 10%. That is to say, a jump of 10% in national economic output. And to be honest, the second one escapes me, but there was a second one that they also found would be in addition to the claimed benefits of the Chicago Plan. So Dr. Kumhoff is the one who has taken up the work of trying to advance people's thinkings about the monetary system and how a public money system might work. So we've had the development of the Act, we've had the modeling of the Act, so we have the proof, we have the economic analysis in the can, so to speak, and we have, other esteemed, noted, economists, which would include Dr. Joseph Huber of Germany, who has been advancing all of this under what he calls just the sovereign money system, because the sovereign money system is the most important understanding that we need to have in a sovereign money system, the people and the people's government are the ones that act to control and use the money system. So that's the, one of the major advances is the fact that we've had macroeconomic modeling of the monetary system showing that a transition to public money would be superbly beneficial to the regular people, because it's the regular people that would be gaining from the full employment that is provided. Now, on top of that, we have, excuse me, major piece of work, major advancement in the understandings of money have been put forward by our friends over in the United Kingdom, Positive Money UK, at positivemoney.org. And a big part of their work stemmed from their presentation of testimony before their Parliamentary Commission on Banking, the National Commission on Banking, of which two of the pairs of eyes and ears that were present were Martin Wolf, who was a member of the commission. There were only, I think, 3 members. But Martin Wolf was a member of the commission, and the other was Lord Adair Turner, who at the time was the head of the Financial Services Authority in the UK. And both of those gentlemen who have heard the testimony from Positive Money have advanced similar undertakings as the Chicago Plan work of Drs. Bennis and Kumhoff. First, Lord Adair Turner came out with his proposals primarily in a paper that he wrote for the Volcker Group of 30, which is really pretty much a bunch of central bankers, not in, I mean that in a disparaging way,